Hello. So today we're going to get the CMI finished. It will be mostly complete. We'll get into more of that a bit later. So the aim today is to get the CMI up, to get all 8 voices working, to get sampling working, and to get it into the studio so I can start using it. So before we kick off, let's complete the story. So during the early 90s, I moved to the UK and started doing some professional recording. The studio I was recording in at the time had this brand new R8 drum machine, completely digital. I did not get along with this drum machine. It was too clean, and the mix engineer and studio owner had just purchased this R8 drum machine and really wanted to use it on everything. There were some arguments. We saw other samplers start to dominate the market. First of all, the Akai's with the 900 series, soon to move into the 1000 series. We saw companies like Ensoniq bring very affordable and very flexible sampling technology to the marketplace. Along this time, things changed with Fairlight. It went out of business, it was reborn. They continued to use the CMI mainframe, but started to take it in a very different direction. They introduced multi-track hard drive recording and started along the MFX line of systems. Computers also started to move forward pretty significantly. Would come out of the 8-bit era and into 16-bit. Computers, like I mentioned, like the Amiga, completely unlocked the ability to start to sample and to start to make music at home. This was going to move forward so fast over the next few years, it's almost unbelievable. By the middle of the 90s, this technology was still very rudimentary, although we were starting to get to digital home CD quality. Within no more than 5 years, you could produce professional studio recordings at home on your home PC. Once this new type of recording became popular, that was it. A lot of the big studios started to close, a lot of the smaller production houses started to suffer. We actually got to the point in the early 2000s where hardware sampling stopped being a thing and it actually moved back into the computer. We started up with the computer, which was the CMI, we moved out to hardware, and we came back into the box. Interestingly, Fairlight continued to morph and changed a few more times. By the early 2010s, Peter Vogel, using the current Fairlight technology, came full circle and created the CMI IIx. I really wanted one of those at the time, but the price was pretty significant, which pretty much brings us right up to where we are today. It's interesting because we're in a time where the possibilities of sound creation are larger, more accessible than they've ever been. But in many ways, there seems to be a rejection around a lot of these new ways of working, with a lot of musicians and creative people wanting more intimate and hands-on control of the technologies they're using. A lot of the samplers of the early 2000s, the late 90s, which were pretty much put away and forgotten about for many years, are now the hot thing that people want. I can't end this story without touching on where sound creation and music is going next. So there's obviously been the rise of generative technologies. A lot of people are calling this AI. It's not really AI, where you can now create any type of music that you wish just by typing a few prompts into a computer. I personally don't see this as music. It's short, it sounds like music, it sounds like the real thing. But I honestly believe if a human is not at the centre of creation, there is no point. It is very easy to get consumed by things that look almost the same, sound almost the same, but they aren't. So jumping straight in, I've got to remove the Canon jacks on the back. They are beyond rusted. They are so bad, even removing the inserts is not going to fix them. Now, as you can see, they're riveted in, so I'm having to drill them out and just desolder them as I go. Pretty easy work, but one of the things I didn't expect was the screw locations, or the rivet locations, are slightly different on the modern ones. So they're going in on a slight angle. I'll have to fix this at some point in the future, but right now it's fine. I'll deal with it. It will at least allow sound to come into the CMI and me be able to test sampling and mic levels, that type of thing. These are the non-functioning voice cards. I ended up with 4 working cards, 4 non-working cards. Fortunately, 3 of the non-working cards, they're actually coming up in the system. I can put sounds into the memory, so they're not too broken. But one of the cards, wow, it's not even seen by the system. So that one's going to be a little tricky. So I'm cleaning the fingers on the cards, on the edge connector part of the card, just to make sure that I'm not going to get sidetracked by connection issues or slight intermittent issues. I've seen this happen so many times where the edge connectors look really fine, the fingers on the board look fine, but for some reason there is just a little bit of resistance going on there, and that just gives spurious results when testing. So I'll put in a bit of time here, I'll do this, that way I know that's not going to be a problem. One of the things I do is just make a visual inspection of the board just to see if there's anything on there that looks slightly suspicious. Some of the capacitors look a little worse from wear, probably from being pulled in and out of the CMI mainframe many times, so I'm just going to test those out, make sure they're working, make sure some of the resistors are working that look a bit scratched up. All looks fine, so time to move on. I'm testing each one of these cards one by one as I go, and that way I'll know it works. So what I do is I pop the first voice card out, which is the initial voice card that sounds load into, and just put in the repaired card, load up a voice, and see if I've got it fixed or if there's still further issues. So the good news is the voice is loaded in, so that means I haven't made the situation any worse. But unfortunately on this occasion, still more work needs to be done. I'm not getting any sound whatsoever. So I've got a backplane from a Fairlight MFX3 system. This is not part of an existing system. I picked it up super cheap. And what I'm doing here is removing some pins from some of the edge connectors to allow me to then fix an extender card that Peter Wielk has sent me. Hopefully, if I can get the extender card running, then that'll allow me to work on the voice cards while they're hanging out of the system, which will allow me to probe the cards and be able to identify faults much more easily. Okay, so extender card fixed. This means I can now get on with actually troubleshooting these cards properly. There's been quite a few comments over the series of why I'm doing all of this on the floor. To be honest, I ran out of space on the table, as you can probably notice. I didn't have another table that would have held the weight of the CMI, and also I was moving so fast with this restoration, going full strength, that most of the time I didn't even notice it was on the floor. I'm sure I've mentioned it before, but having full schematics for the system makes troubleshooting a breeze. Well, once you understand the components. One of the things I haven't talked about much is the Fairlight service manual. This is probably the main reason these systems are still alive and you're able to actually recover them from a pretty dead state. Not only does it have the technical specifications and schematics of every part on the CMI, but it also has theory of operation, how to run tests, what the expected outcomes are. A lot of work was put into these manuals, and fortunately they're freely available on the internet, and I do recommend, if you're interested, go and have a look. They are some of the best written technical documentation I've ever seen. Speaking of components, this is the first time I've ever had to work at circuit level with an analog to digital converter or a digital to analog converter. As such, I had to do a bit of research to figure out how those things work. Basically, you're using voltage and resistor ladders to just turn sounds back from digital into analog, or to go the reverse way. Fortunately, once again in the service manual, there's quite a good section on theory of operation, and after reading that quite a few times and slowly letting that seep into my head, I was able to fully understand exactly what was going on here. Now, Interestingly, I am so used to dealing with synthesizers and normally analog synthesizers, so it was really interesting to see that this was all digitally controlled. So basically, even where you would normally have a voltage to open a filter, and the more you increase that voltage, the more the filter would open, this was all done digitally. So you were sending 8-bit digital signal to actually determine how far to open a filter or how far to open an envelope. Wow, it took me a long time to get my head around that. Yes, it's making noise. Well, it's making sound. So 3 of the cards had exactly the same faults. Basically, all of the digital to analog converters had died, and the op amps driving those digital to analog converters had also died. It's really hard to plug things in wrong on the CMI. I suppose if you mix up the serial lines and the 15 volt audio lines, then yeah, you can do some damage, but I can't imagine how 3 of these cards all died in the same way. I'm guessing there must have been an overvoltage at some point in the history of this CMI that took the cards out. So as I've said before, rinse and repeat. We've now got 7 functioning sound cards. I've just got to figure out what's making that card that's not working not work, and I'll have a fully working CMI. We are so close, almost there. I am super excited at this point. We are almost there, but as you might have noticed below, there's a lot longer to go in this clip. Things were just about to take a bad turn. Sorry about the echo. It stopped. It's completely dead. No power, nothing. Okay, I thought I dodged a bullet right at the beginning and all was going too well. I knew something was going to be wrong with the power supply, and I should have paid more attention. As you can see, the CMI is so modular, it's so well thought out that tearing it apart, while a bit soul destroying, is very easy and very quick to do. Putting it back together, not so sure about yet, but anyway, we'll get there. Bit of a thought experiment going on here while I'm tearing the CMI down. So if it's not powering on and always blowing fuses, it means there's probably a dead short. So I've removed all the cards, it's still blowing the fuses, there's still a dead short. It makes sense that that dead short is in the power supply. I am guessing one of the full bridge rectifiers has died. It's either that or one of the capacitors has gone dead short, or worse, the transformer itself has gone dead short. Now, unlikely the transformer's gone dead short. It does happen very occasionally, normally after moisture has been close to the transformer, but I'm hoping it's not the transformer. We're gonna check the full bridge rectifiers. So if I was to complain at all about the design of the CMI, it's the fact that you cannot get to the rectifiers or the capacitors without doing a full teardown. I guess you've got to look at it that this thing is 40 years old at this point. Wow, that just seems crazy. But anyway, this thing is 40 years old, and these components have mostly been fine for most of that time. Interestingly enough, one of these bridge rectifiers has actually been replaced in the past. It's also not been done very well. I'm guessing it's potentially a field repair by the looks of it, and somebody was a bit desperate to get the system up and running, probably for a gig or a big show. So yeah, a bit of a field repair, and that's what's come back to bite us. Just to make sure I'm not going mad, that's plus, that's AC, that's 4 volts, opposing sides, and that's plus 4 volts, dead sure. Okay, I found the problem. At least one of the problems. So let's replace the part and let's see if we still have a working system. That's probably what I'm most concerned about, that it's put potentially AC into components that expect DC only, and yeah, that normally doesn't end very well. To try and make a bit of a positive out of this, I'm going to do a bit of cleaning that I knew I should have done early on, but I knew I had to tear down the whole system to do it, so it's time to make sure this CMI is completely clean and largely dust-free inside.
Heading down the main straight now, Hamilton slots in behind the Argentine in 10th place, hard tyres.
Oh, that is relief. That means the dead short is now gone. I can check voltages. Looks like we've got proper voltage on the fan, so the transformer, at least on the 110 volt winding, is fine. Okay, before I put the cards in, let me check all the other voltages, and luckily enough, they're all now looking good. I'm a bit nervous that the bridge rectifier didn't look to be under spec, so yeah, I'll take the win. I'm not going to reject it, but I've lost a bit of faith in this power supply. Alright, I've rebuilt the computer section. Time to test. Oh, at least that starts up. That's so much better than I was expecting. The computer comes up. I don't have to go through that, what was it, days of trying to get the computer working again. That's really good. I dodged a bullet. I really dodged a bullet. I was expecting to have to start again with the computer section. Thankfully, it doesn't look like too much damage was done. Unfortunately, the music keyboard either took a hit or created this problem in the first place. Interestingly, on the CMI 10 board, the main board that runs the music keyboard, one of the capacitors on the 5 volt line had been installed backwards in the factory. I said early on, I don't believe this keyboard's been used much. Did this take the system out? I don't know. So with that, we're going to have to change out the keyboard and the alpha keyboard temporarily. So I tried for about 2 weeks to get the CMI 10, the music keyboard board, working. I just couldn't do it. It was one of the most frustrating things I've ever worked on, probably within the first 10 to 15 boards ever shipped. As such, there is an excessive amount of rework on it. So as you're working on it and replacing parts, you have to keep removing the rework, putting the rework back. It's not documented. The board itself isn't the same as the ones in the service manuals. Actually, it was so frustrating, I sent it to Peter Wielk in Sydney. Peter tried valiantly to try and bring it alive, also got as frustrated with this board as I did, and eventually we agreed, send back a CMI 10 that was just a bit more modern and a bit less hassle to work on. So there were a few panels left to spray on the CMI, and if you can see on the top of the vent there, one of the vents is one of the slats on the vents is slightly bent, so I'll fix that up. But mostly, hopefully, we're almost entirely there. So a lot of the multiplexers took quite a hit, and I'm going to take the opportunity to replace them all. So I said early on that this keyboard didn't look like it had been actually used too much. I suspect it had hardly ever been used, which explains why it was just out there on reverb without a system and nobody knew where the system was. Maybe it was a prop at some point, maybe it was a spare that never got used. Do not know. So, good time to actually clean up those bus bars and make sure that they're not going to cause any problems. They look pretty clean, but there is quite a bit of corrosion on them, mostly where the keys have been sitting unused for many, many years. So we'll clean those up. We'll probably rotate the bars slightly. That way we're always touching new metal. Okay, final voice card. I can't believe we're at this part. We are seriously almost there. So, interestingly enough, this one was a bit of a red herring. So, easily I managed to locate that the reason that it couldn't be seen by the CMI was the actual bus transceivers, the chips that sit in between the card, or at least the components on the card, and the backplane, and obviously the CPU of the CMI. So that was pretty easy to diagnose. Then there were a bunch of other issues. So the red herring here was, it was exhibiting the distortion that I was getting when the digital to analog converters and op amps had blown on the other cards. As such, rinse and repeat again. I just removed the DACs and removed the op amps, replaced them, but there was still distortion in the sound. It actually turned out one of the RAM ICs had actually gone bad as well. So after removing that RAM IC and putting it back in the system, here we go. So that's it. All boards are now working. I want my kitchen back. Let's get it into the studio. It's up, it's running. And between the time of me editing these video clips, things have moved much further forward. The music keyboard and alpha keyboard are now completely working. The system is fully finished and fully functional. This brings to a close the restoration clips on the Fairlight CMI IIx, but I will be doing a full demo of the system very soon. And during that clip, I'd like to answer some of your questions in person. So if you've got any questions around the CMI or around the restoration, please drop them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to answer them in the comments below or in the video clip next time. Thank you for sticking with this restoration over so many episodes. I hope you enjoyed the journey as much as I enjoy using the CMI. Thank you for watching, and I'll chat to you soon.